subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
The Chief Minister Himanta led government in Assam has now come up with a cattle bill, which has become a source of much controversy. What is this bill about? That's something we've talked about, we've explained even at the print. But more importantly, what is the politics behind the bill and what does it mean for a state like Assam? To talk to us about the politics of it and to explain what it means for the culture of Assam, for the people of Assam, we have Congress leader from the state, Gaurav Gogoi, who everybody knows is also the member of parliament from Kaliabor. Gaurav, thank you so much for joining us today. So,
thanks very much.
You've been speaking out against this bill. So let's just begin with talking a little bit about why this bill is so controversial and what is your opposition to the bill?
Well, Ruhi, let us question the timing of the bill. Yesterday, the Prime Minister had a conference with all the chief ministers of Northeast regarding the rise in COVID. Clearly, COVID is the #1 priority. There are close to 7 districts in Assam which is under lockdown. And we just had the recent election, so this is a new government. Now, there is COVID and there is the issue of price rise, which is causing so much of burden on the people of Assam. The Chief Minister himself, in his meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister, asked for more vaccines. Now, in this context, where there are not enough vaccines, we are still under lockdown, many of our districts are under lockdown. The government brings a bill which is essentially to regulate, not prevent, regulate consumption, slaughter, and transport of cattle. Now, Assam already has a law, which is the 1950 Cattle Preservation Act. So, when there's already a law which is regulating consumption, slaughter, and transport, why is the Chief Minister in such a hurry when the priorities of the state are definitely COVID and the economic distress? So that's why I've said this is nothing but an attempt to distract the people of Assam from the mismanagement of COVID and the economic distress that people of Assam are facing.
All right. Now, Gaurav, this bill also says beef can't be sold within a 5-kilometer radius of there being a temple or, any predominantly Hindu Sikh area or a khatra. Is that even practical in a state like Assam? You know the state very well.
Ruhi, the current act, which is the 1950 Act, that also says that if you want, whether for slaughter or for consumption or for sale, if you want to have any business or transaction, you have to take permission of the government official, which is the veterinary official. So and therefore I completely trust that Assam's veterinary officials and government officers will always take in account the sentiments of the people in the vicinity of whether, cattle is being transported or slaughtered. So that is by default, which is already there in the law. So I'm always assuming that the sentiments of people have to be respected, and therefore, the government officer will take a competent decision. So I reiterate that this is a bill which I have seen, which seems to be a carbon copy of an ordinance which was introduced in Uttar Pradesh by Yogi Adityanath, and it seems that it's a simple copy and paste job. This bill does not talk about Assamese culture with respect to cows at all. In Assam, I don't know about other states, but we have an entire day in a year which is devoted to looking after the welfare of our cows. And communities, whether they're living in cities or in villages, all come out, and in a community fashion, we apply haldi, turmeric paste. We feed them fruits. We worship them. So we have an entire day in Assam which is about promoting, our respect and promoting the dignity of cows. So I don't understand that why is Assam and the Chief Minister of Assam copying a bill from Uttar Pradesh and copying a bill of the UP Chief Minister. I would say it's vice versa. I feel that Assamese culture is far more superior, and we should take this our culture to other parts of India. And I would like to say that, it begs to, it raises a fundamental concern that how are two state governments passing such similar laws, which seems to be a template almost, without any context of this local state. And then it obviously raises the question that these bills and their templates are coming from a central source, a central source which is not nobody else but the RSS headquarters in Nagpur. And they are dictating to these two state governments what bill and what template of the bill should be. And I think my Assamese culture is far more superior to the RSS ideology. My Assamese culture does not need lessons from the RSS about how to promote the welfare of cows. So it is unfortunate that when in the midst of COVID, in the midst of price rise, the chief minister is beholden to his RSS masters and is taking a law which has nothing to do with Assam's context and history. And there are so many flaws in this bill, which I'm sure will get raised in subsequent discussions in the State Legislative Assembly.
Right. Now, Gaurav, Assam has had a bit of a turbulent time over the last few years. There was the NRC that was initiated. NRC took a bit of a communal turn. All of us know that, instead of being a question of ethnicity, which is what it was originally meant to be about. Because of the CAA, then the CAA caused a lot of protests in the state. Do you think this bill also has the potential to, in a way, question the fabric of the state?
I think this bill is nothing but an attempt of the RSS to manipulate Assam's diversity and Assamese culture into what the RSS want Assam to look like, or Assamese society to look like. And as I said, Assamese culture, our history, our language is far more superior and far more ancient than the 1925 set up RSS. So RSS, instead of forcing or trying to bend Assamese society to fit its own vision, needs to first study and understand Assam. And therefore, whether it's NRC or CAA, whether it is this bill, this is nothing but an attempt to completely bend the will of our people to follow the RSS diktat. And I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. That's not democracy. That's not India. India is far bigger than the RSS. And instead of trying to fix the heterogeneous character of India into the homogeneous vision of RSS, I think the RSS should take a step back and should learn from the diversity of India.
Right. But Gaurav, what is also true is that despite NRC, despite CAA, and despite a lot of noise being created around these two, the BJP was voted back to power. It's the second time the BJP has been voted to power in Assam, and with a fairly comfortable majority. What would you say about that? How would you explain that?
So, Ruhi, the results of the 2021 assembly elections have been disappointing. Prior, in the run-up to the assembly elections, the Congress party and our allies, I believe, had run quite a spirited campaign, and many in the public and in the mainstream press had alluded to the fact that the Congress was running and successfully leading a very positive campaign and development-oriented campaign. And yet the results were not to our liking, the results were not to our expectations. And since then, we've had several inner-party deliberations. We've had an AICC committee led by Ashok Chavanji and former Union Minister Salman Khurshid ji and Manish Tewari and other MPs deliberate along with us. And we've chalked out a roadmap of how we need to improve ourselves. And I believe we're on that roadmap. You've seen that already. It's not even been 2 months, and we're already out talking about COVID, talking about price rise, talking about all the issues that are affecting the people of Assam. So we're out because we understand that in the end, we have to connect with the people of Assam. We have to gain their trust and improve our credibility. And that's what we are going to do.
But Gaurav, there is a larger question of people of Assam accepting the BJP, despite perhaps these measures which go against what the ethnic Assamese has stood for. So in that sense, and I know it's a provocative thing to say, but has Assam changed? Has the Assamese identity taken a backseat to perhaps other issues, maybe even a larger communal umbrella?
Well, Ruhi, when you talk about Assamese identity, I don't know if you're referring to any particular political issue or a particular issue related to the community, but I must say the broader Assamese identity is still very resilient. And one must not conflate the outcome of an election with the broader Assamese sentiment. Clearly, you cannot take an entire state's or society's past and reduce it to the outcome of one election. Give it time, give it patience. I must say that from the length and breadth of my travels, I do feel that Assamese culture is something that people are disappointed with when it comes to the BJP government. But in terms of elections, they might have had other issues which influenced their vote. I really do not see, the level the level of change in Assamese society and Assamese way of thinking, as you're referring to in your question. I do see that many in Assamese people, young people, women, across all barriers, understand that the RSS and what they're trying to do is something external. It's not organic. It's not coming from within. Yes, in the past, Assam's history, we've had our debates. We've had horrific incidents. We've had incidents of violence. But every time when there's been an incident of violence, we've tried to build bridges. Assam is diverse. There will be times when there will be conflict between two communities, ethnically different, religiously different, linguistically different. The cause of the issue might be different, but I'm confident that always in the past, even after a moment of conflict between two communities, we have bridges being built. In the past, there's been issues between Karbis and non-Karbis, Biharis and Assamese and Bengalis. So many of this, Hindus and Muslims. Who can forget the tragedy of Nelly? So definitely, our diversity will always be our single, most important source of our strength. But at the same time, I think Assamese identity is very accommodative. Assamese identity is very broad and very progressive. And therefore, I feel that in the end, our values will remain intact.
Uttar Pradesh has now brought in this population control bill, which essentially tries to enforce a two-child norm. Assam has also been talking about it. How do you see it fit into Assam's context? And do you think a bill like that in any state will really work?
Well, first of all, I do want to understand what provisions of this bill would be applicable to the MLAs. Because the MLAs bring about these bills which kind of put some form of penalty on the voter, on the people, on the electorate, and yet they seem to be aloof to it. They seem to be excluded from it. They seem to be insured against it. Now, in Uttar Pradesh, I read somewhere that there are many MLAs who have more than 3 children. Now, what government benefits will they be denied? What government perks will they be denied? And I think that's very unjust when lawmakers pass laws to which they are not a part of. So first, as a lawmaker, I would say that's a fundamental flaw in this process. Secondly, in the past, if you look at India's demographics, slowly and slowly our fertility rate has come down. How? Because in the past, we focused on empowerment of women. Women have been at the centerpiece of family planning. We've focused on their education. We focused on the economic empowerment. We focused on their social empowerment and the political empowerment. Where are women in this entire debate about population control? Where are the women of Uttar Pradesh? Where are the women of Assam? Have they even been consulted as to how they feel? What their choices regarding their families should be influenced and encouraged. And again, where's the data to support these kind of laws? Where is the scientific research? Health is a subject which has been studied by so many experts within India and outside. Where is the data that shows that if you deny a low-income group from government benefits, thereby keeping them further in poverty, that their population will come down? And here in India, we have, we've have unfortunately this problem of giving preference to the male child. These kind of policies which inflict restrictions on family planning sometimes lead to gender imbalances as well, and female infanticide as well. Even in China, there's a lot of cases and worry regarding where are so many, where about the missing girls in a naturally in their country. So all of this has again been, why now? When there's record unemployment, why now? When people are dying from COVID, why now? When there is such high, we have prices of petrol and diesel have crossed 100. Why now? Is this the priority? Does the data back it? Have the women been consulted? So clearly, I think, these are issues just to digress the media attention, the attention of the public. And as oppositions, we are not going to let that happen, whether in the state assembly or in the parliament in the next week. Price rise and COVID would be the two most important issues. And we will force the government, whether at the center or at the center, we will force the government to be accountable and to be transparent.
Right. Gaurav, Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, of course, is the first-time chief minister, but he has been a seasoned, administrator. He was also a very senior member of your party at one point. How would you assess his performance in the last few months and compared to his predecessor, Mr. Sonowal?
Well, first of all, in the last month and a half, we've had an objective report on the status of social sustainable goals released by the Niti Aayog, in which Assam ranked poorly on health and education. Coincidentally, these are the two departments that Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has been handling for such a long period. And what are the results and what does the Niti Aayog say? That Assam is 28, the lowest rank when it comes to health amongst all the states. That Assam is in the bottom 5 or 6 states when it comes to education. We have the second highest dropout in the country when it comes to class 9, class 10 students. We have the highest rate of crimes being reported when it comes to women. And essentially, this was a report card that came out. And the chief minister, instead of acknowledging it, being honest about it, being transparent about it, tried to dismiss it off and tried to pass it off as fake. So this is clearly a BJP strategy, to not take responsibility. And we have seen that in this month and a half, besides denying obvious facts about the poor state of health and education, the chief minister has already backtracked on some of his key promises made during the election. They increased the wages of tea garden laborers by 50 rupees through a government notification. And after winning the votes and winning the election, they've withdrawn that notification. They promised during the election that all the women who are facing a very economically hard future because of the loans that they have taken from microfinance banks and can't repay, all of these loans would be waived off. And now this government in the first month has introduced certain terms and conditions. We've talked about the high school exams and metric examinations. Entire country, many states had conducted the exams earlier this year. Bihar did it, Chhattisgarh did it in June. Even Kerala, which went to elections along with Assam, managed to conduct a part of its examinations. But in Assam, we are unable to. There was a flip-flop. They first said the exams would be conducted in August, then they said July, and they finally said exams will not be conducted at all, contributing to the stress among students. So in this month, in the first month and a half, I have seen not a single promise being achieved. I've not seen this government being honest. Right now, this government, the chief minister and his cabinet are busy refurbishing their bungalows, the ministry bungalows in Dispur. They're taking money from people in terms of higher petrol and diesel prices and higher VAT. And now they're taking that money and spending it on renovating their bungalows and living a life of luxury and installing new air conditioners and bathrooms and verandas. So it's extremely disappointing, but I'm not surprised. I was never of the faith that this is a government that has a leadership which is effective or competent.
Right. Now, before we close, Gaurav, just an honest assessment from you. There's been enough time since the elections finished, so I'm sure there's been a lot of introspection, a lot of thinking. Do you think Congress would have performed better had you gone with a clear CM face?
Ruhi, let's just say that clearly when we lost my father due to COVID and post-COVID related implications, the Congress party lost one of its tallest generals. When you talk about a CM face, you talk about a face that people of Assam can connect with, the people of Assam can trust with. And that face for the longest time was my father. And when you go into a battle without your tallest general, you're essentially going with two hands tied behind your back. So I think that's the real answer to this, to this issue of CM face when it was influencing people's vote.
Right. All right, Gaurav, thank you so much for taking time out and talking to the print. You've been very vocal about the cattle bill, and this interview should help our viewers get some perspective on the politics behind the bill and how Assam, perhaps, and the opposition in Assam is perceiving it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruhi. Have a good day.
You too.